Mint sat behind the heavy desk. A thick cigar rested between her teeth, its tip glowing a dull, pulsing red. Blue smoke drifted upward, clinging to the ceiling in stagnant layers. She flipped through a stack of reports, each page detailing a new failure at the Miller nail factory. The paper crinkled under her fingers. Ava, Aplina, Diana, and Pina stood in the doorway. They watched the ash grow long, precarious, and heavy on the end of the cigar. Mint did not look up. She felt their presence, the weight of their attention, but she kept her eyes on the ledger. She tapped the desk twice, a sharp, rhythmic sound that cut through the silence. Finally, she tossed the entire file across the wood. It slid to the edge, scattering loose sheets. "The factory is a disaster," Mint muttered. She pulled the cigar from her mouth and pointed the glowing end toward the door. "Fix it." The four women did not hesitate. They turned in unison. The factory gates loomed, rusted and imposing. Ava, Aplina, Diana, and Pina stood at the entrance, their movements precise and practiced. They transitioned into their roles, securing heavy radio sets to their belts. The shift was immediate. For 3 days, the perimeter became their world. They checked badges with mechanical efficiency, their eyes scanning every face. Inside, the warehouse floors were vast, echoing caverns of steel and shadow. They patrolled in pairs, boots clicking rhythmically. The flickering security cameras overhead cast long, distorted shapes across the aisles. Every hour, they logged the status of the loading bays. The monotony was a test of patience. They monitored the silent monitors, watching the grainy, black and white feeds for any sign of irregularity. The factory hummed with a low, industrial vibration that rattled the teeth. By the third night, the repetition had sharpened their senses. The factory was quiet, but the air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were concealing a secret. On the fourth night, the staff clocked out, leaving the administrative wing in total stillness. Ava moved to the main office door. She pulled a screwdriver from her belt, wedged the tip into the lock, and twisted. The mechanism gave way with a sharp, metallic click. Inside, she scanned the desk until her fingers landed on a heavy, leather-bound ledger. She flipped through the pages, her eyes darting across columns of data, until she reached a section marked Special Additives. Her breath hitched. The chemical formula listed on the page contained concentrated traces of lethal nightshade. She signaled the others via radio. They regrouped in the hallway, moving with calculated silence. A faint, earthy scent hung in the air, clashing with the sterile smell of the factory floor. They followed the odor through a series of back corridors, past rows of rusted machinery, until they reached a heavy steel door at the very end of the hall. The scent was overpowering here. They pushed the door open. The room beyond was bathed in a harsh, artificial, ultraviolet glow. Rows of glass tanks lined the walls. The factory was not producing nails. It was cultivating poison. The silence shattered. A heavy engine roared to life in the loading bay, vibrating through the floorboards. The team bolted, boots pounding against the concrete as they sprinted toward the parking lot. They burst outside just as a vehicle surged toward the gate. Ava dove into their van, ignition sparking, and tires shrieked against the pavement in a cloud of burnt rubber. The chase tore into the industrial district, weaving through narrow intersections and dodging heavy transport trucks. The owner drove with reckless desperation. Diana leaned out the passenger window, signaling for him to stop, but he only accelerated, pushing the engine to a high-pitched whine. He veered sharply into a dead-end alleyway near the docks. The vehicle skidded and smashed into a towering stack of wooden pallets. Before the dust settled, Pina and Aplina were out of the van, hauling the owner from the seat, pinning his arms behind his back. Sirens wailed, cutting through the stagnant air of the alleyway as Mint pulled her car to a stop. She stepped out, her gaze fixed on the man pinned against the hood of the wrecked vehicle. She stopped inches from him, reached up, and pulled the cigar from her mouth. She pointed the glowing tip directly at his chest. "You," she said, her voice steady and cold. "You were the one behind every single incident." The owner slumped, his resistance vanishing as he realized the game was over. Mint signaled the officers. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed against the brick walls as they tightened around his wrists. He sagged against the car, defeated. The factory incidents had finally reached their end.